I get it, Bears fans. Like, you look at the list of head coaching candidates and you've got your varying opinions because the reality is, for a lot of these guys, it's really hard to know. A lot of it could depend upon your perspective as to whether you think some of the things they bring to the table are good or bad, whether or not what they were a part of in their current role is a representation of good or bad, what have you. I get that. Now, I certainly understand there are those Bears fans that hold on to the hope of Captain Khakis himself, Jim Harbaugh, and that he's going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. I guess until you either hear about Jim Harbaugh being hired by somebody else like a Miami or the Raiders or signing a new contract extension with Michigan, it is technically possible as of the time of this recording. It is. Like, I might not be as huge on Harbaugh as some of the other Bears fans because I think the timing would have been better in 2015 or 2018, but I get it. What you can point to with a Jim Harbaugh is a track record of proven NFL head coaching success. I would argue that's much more due to Vic Fangio and that elite level defense that San Francisco had during Harbaugh's time there. But now you could make an argument that up to that point in time, he helped get by far the most out of Alex Smith's career, was a good early coach for Colin Kaepernick in his career. You know, bottom line is this is a guy that went to the playoffs 3 straight years, won a division title, conference championship, went to the Super Bowl, was this close to winning one over his brother. I get it. Like, there's an appeal there. I'm a little baffled, though, that for a lot of Bears fans that I see, you would think the ultimate goal is to win the Super Bowl, and many Bears fans are opposed to a Doug Peterson. I'm not saying he's my number one choice. What I'm saying, though, is that if you're looking at a guy like him, you can make an argument that if you want to win a Super Bowl, it's a pretty good idea to bring in a coach that's actually won one. And he did it in 2017 with Carson Wentz and then later Nick Foles as his 2 starting quarterbacks. Like, you can talk about, well, that was due to Frank Reich and this. Like, I get that. And this is a valid question, valid potential criticism. But he still ultimately won a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Can't sit there and make these criticisms about Peterson and then say these ones for Harbaugh don't apply. And when I look at the criticism, I said Peterson wins the Super Bowl. Harbaugh doesn't. That's a difference. It's a differentiator. But I get it. Some like him, some don't. But at least you're dealing with guys with some level of proven NFL head coaching success that you can't take away from them. So they are intriguing, compelling options, regardless of how you feel about them. But a lot of these other names, like Leslie Frazier, why would you want the second best coordinator from the Buffalo Bills? Talk about Bears football! You talk about a guy from the 85 Bears. Oh, could you imagine? So you're bringing in this, 62, 63-year-old guy who was a gross failure in his previous head coaching stop in Minnesota, who coaches on the Buffalo Bills staff where he's not even viewed as the most attractive of the coordinator head coaching candidates. That's Brian Daboll. Meanwhile, he's also coaching under Sean McDermott, so it's more of Sean McDermott's defense. Like, that would be the ultimate Goofy George yuck hire. That's a hell fucking no. A lot of these other guys, though, you can make pros or cons. Todd Bowles didn't go well with the Jets, but his first season they did win 10 games. Wasn't exactly a great situation there. Clearly a good leader of men, just wasn't a good team. And look at the situation he was in. Look at his work with Tampa the past couple of years as defensive coordinator. Look at their defensive performance in the Super Bowl, for example. Like, kind of guy that merits a second shot at some point in time. Just because you fail once doesn't mean you're going to fail a second time. You can be successful. Sometimes you learn from those mistakes. You get into a better situation. I could also see why some are looking at Byron Leftwich and saying, you know, this is a guy that played quarterback in the NFL. This is a guy that's worked with Tom Brady the past couple of years. You know, and you feel like he's ready for it, a head coaching job. Concerns about whether he's really the guy calling the shots in Tampa Bay's offense, or if that's Bruce Arians. What I'm getting at is you go through all these different guys. To me, you can come up with pros and cons. The one thing, though, I cannot for the life of me understand is why so many Bears fans are so hyped up about the possibility of Brian Flores as the next head coach of the team. Why? Why? And what I find particularly interesting is there are numerous red flags that I really haven't seen effectively refuted. For example, you'll get the excuse of, well, he preferred Justin Herbert. And he never was down with Tua. He didn't like Tua. And that's why he kept pulling Tua and he didn't have confidence in him, what have you. That's just off of one report. So this is like peak 21st century internet confirmation bias bullshit. You found the first report that confirmed something you want to believe and automatically ran with that. Even though there are conflicting reports that says he was on board with drafting Tua, agreed with it, and supported it. We don't know which one is the truth. A lot of you seem to want to think that it's the he didn't like Tua because it's fitting your bias, and I just don't really get that. But what you can't deny is that Brian Flores ultimately was a failure in Miami. And how could I say that? Now look, Chris Grier should have been shown the fucking door. How the hell he still has a job and has a chance to hire a third head coach for the Miami Dolphins, this is freaking gross and obscene. But Brian Flores had 3 years in Miami. In 2019, you remember they had traded for Josh Rosen, given up a second-round pick to bring him in and see what they could do. Now, I knew Rosen was crap. If you followed me for a few years, you know I was on that shit. Day 3 pick all the way. The Cardinals, dumbasses, took him 10th overall. Like, they paid the price for their stupidity and their poor quarterback evaluation. But you bring Rosen in, and then he can't wait to undercut Rosen and play Fitzpatrick most of the year. So bringing this situation in 2019, you bring in Flores like he's the young guy coming from the Patriots because that's what you want to do, bring in somebody from the fucking Belichick coaching tree. How many times are these goddamn teams going to do this shit before they learn their damn lesson? But okay, he comes in and people want to give him credit. Oh, they vastly outperformed. They were clearly trying to tank for Tua, and my God, they won 5 games. And maybe you could argue that was his best coaching job. I might argue that it is until you realize that means that he was going against the name of the game and going against the fucking program. He kind of went into business for himself. You were trying to tank to get yourself in a position to take a quarterback number 1 overall, which you originally maybe envisioned was going to be Tua. But as the season went along, you should have learned that he wasn't the number 1 quarterback in that draft and it wasn't close. So you cost yourself the opportunity to draft Joe Burrow number 1, and then when you're sitting there at 5, you take the small quarterback that lacked the big-time physical upside and tools. You took him instead of Justin Herbert. And that organization is going to pay a price for that for decades. And that's Chris Grier's ass as much as it is Brian Flores. But if you think Brian Flores wasn't at least someone involved, you're fucking insane. But the bottom line is, undercuts the tank in 2019. They go 5-11. Whoop-de-doo. First year, like, we knew that was going to be bad. But then in 2020, after a 3-3 start, brings in Tua, but then every time you turn around, he brings into it, he ain't Tua, to bring into it, or he ain't Tua, because he's trying to sit there and get to the fucking playoffs, so he's sacking and undercutting the legs of Tua and stopping the momentum of any development that he could potentially have, all for what? To ultimately not make the fucking playoffs. And then 2021 comes around, and it kind of sort of ends up a similar type of thing. You have multiple instances where he's not showing faith in Tua. He's benching Tua. Like, this is not the type of guy that showed that he could handle, coach, and develop a young quarterback very well. And excuse the fuck out of me, Bears fans, but I thought number 1 priority for a lot of you was to develop Justin Fields. So why in the bluest of blue fucks would you want this guy anywhere in the stratosphere of goddamn Justin Fields? That makes no goddamn sense. Ding dong, dumb dicks. I realize Fields has more physical tools and upside. He absolutely does. But you have a proven track record of he couldn't fucking work with a young quarterback at all. He did a terrible job. So you want to bring him into this situation so you can possibly fuck up another young quarterback? The hell's wrong with you? This whole notion of, oh, he's this young defensive genius and this great defensive mind. Yeah, except his defenses in Miami in 3 years were never better than mediocre to average. If he was so great on the defensive side of the ball, his defenses would have been top 5 in the league. I think in 2020 they might have been 6th in points allowed. But other seasons, they're middle of the pack to lower in terms of points allowed, in terms of yardage allowed. So it was a middle of the road defense. So you want to bring him in to work with the Bears defensive unit? For what? So they can be a middle-of-the-road defense? If you're going to do that, you might as well keep fucking Sean Desai. That's dumb. Like, everything I hear as an excuse or a justification or a rationale for the Chicago Bears hiring Brian Flores to be their next head coach is just fucking stupid. the Belichick coaching tree is irrelevant crap. Until you realize that basically all of them, the Mangini's, you could go on and on and on, especially some of the ones that have prickly personalities. Mangini, Patricia, they fucking sucked. Brian Flores, thought of to have a bit of a prickly personality. Fucking sucked. Maybe not the same level as some of those other guys. But goddamn. What is it, the most successful NFL head coach to come out of the Belichick coaching tree is Bob? That's the standard you're trying to surpass is Bob? Bill O'Brien? Until you have a coach actually come from the Belichick coaching tree, directly from it, and they actually do big things in the league, that coaching tree is relevant. Why in the hell would you want to keep picking rancid fruit off of it? It makes no goddamn sense. And the whole thing about, well, he got screwed in Miami, he didn't deserve to be fired. 3 years, no playoffs. Whatever fucking excuses you want to make. 2021. Well, they went on this big run and won like 7 games in a row in the middle of the season. They played a bunch of scrub-ass teams, the Ravens on a Thursday night, and then capping it off on a Monday night game against the Saints where they were starting a scrub-ass rookie and Ian Book at quarterback. They feasted on a soft-ass schedule and still failed to make the fucking playoffs. You want to talk about some Bears football bullshit? To hire somebody immediately after they were fired when they had mediocre results and didn't do shit. I remember when this happened a few years ago. Oh, that's right. When the fucking Dolphins fired Adam Gase, who was hired by Chris Greer after 3 seasons at least. Adam Gase went to the playoffs his first year in 2016 with that Ryan Tannehill team. Remember that? Went like 10-6. The Jets, who were in their same fucking division, apparently looked at Adam Gase and said, you know what? We want us some of that. And how did that go? Basically, Bears fans want to hire the fucking black Adam Gase. That's what they want to fucking hire here. This is stupid. And when you talk about the offense, which is going to be so critically important, look at how horrendously he botched his handling of the offensive situation in terms of the quarterback position, in terms of the coaching staff. The motherfucker went through 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years, 3 quarterback coaches in 3 years, 4 offensive line coaches in 3 years. And this is the guy that you think is the answer for the Chicago Bears? This is the guy that you think you want to have around a young Justin Fields? What the hell am I missing here? Now, I think Brian Flores someday could actually be a pretty good head coach in the NFL. I really do. But to go out there and immediately rash panic hire him when he hasn't even had time to decompress, when he hasn't even had time to learn any lessons or anything, is just fucking ridiculous. Let a Houston hire him. Let a New York Giants hire him and let them take that chance. If you're going to go after a head coach that actually has had NFL head coaching experience in the past, go after a guy like Doug Peterson or Jim Harbaugh. That makes fucking sense. You've already seen what Brian Flores can do. The results are mixed to bad. Turmoil all throughout the offensive coaching staff, which is disastrous for a young quarterback. So yes, let's bring Justin Fields up around that the next few years. Nah. Such a great defensive mind, but his defenses were average at best. Bears fans talk about wanting to win a championship just once more in their lifetimes. Yeah, you're bringing in a guy who in 3 years didn't take the team to the playoffs once, couldn't even live up to fucking Adam Gase's standards, and you want to sit there and hire him and think he's the goddamn answer? Just none of this makes any fucking sense at all. Like, it's one of these times where I'm not just coming with gut feelings, like, I'm coming with tangible, somewhat to mostly verifiable things. And a lot of you are coming up with excuses and bullshit. Not only should we be focusing on who Chicago Bears should hire as general manager first, what we certainly shouldn't be doing is sitting there and worrying about somebody like a goddamn Brian Flores. There are better options out there. Go out and find them. Hiring Brian Flores would be damn near peak Bears football. Almost as bad as hiring Leslie Frazier. Almost. Not quite that bad. But the Bears got to take a hard pass on this guy. And Bears fans need to wake the fuck up and come to their senses. Because right now, a lot of you are talking all types of crazy dumb shit about this guy, and it doesn't make any sense.